Bowl parade. What's the preferred parade route, Sarah? Spain?
Well, Stuart, Santa Monica is going to be jammed. They're going to take Pico and take a left on Alvarado by the Vaughn.
Whoa, I think Jude's got something here, too.
South.
What are you doing here?
Woody Page, Justin Sisley, I think you have no idea what they're doing. Right, okay.
No, but I enjoyed it, though. That was awesome.
Saturday Night Live sketch from California. We're going to do it. That's a lot of fun. We're going to have some fun later. We start with a story that is no fun at all. Major League Baseball. A winter from hell from baseball continues. The U.S. versus former Angels Director of Communications Eric Kay. The defense's turn today. Kay charged with distributing opioids and causing the death of pitcher Tyler Skaggs. Fallout from yesterday's testimony, multiple players, including Matt Harvey, admitting drug use and brazen drug availability in a baseball clubhouse. Harvey testifying that Skaggs told him he would crush up and snort pills on the toilet dispenser in the clubhouse bathroom. Another piece of testimony from Harvey that Skaggs wanted to pitch loosey-goosey, and Harvey would provide him 6 or 7 Percocets. National panels, sports leagues, and baseball specifically have been rocked by drug scandals in the past. While our national view of drugs has evolved to some degree, our national crisis with opioids rages. June Lee, what does baseball have here?
Well, Major League Baseball has to confront this problem head on because, as Terry Collins talked about yesterday in regards to Matt Harvey, people around the sport know that this was happening. And so it makes me wonder if this is just the tip of the iceberg and Major League Baseball needs to get to the bottom of it, because this is 4 players who are legally had to come to the stand to talk about what was happening. It wasn't out of their own volition. It wasn't because, they had gotten over their problems. This is something that is continuing to happen in the sport of baseball, according to the testimonies of these players. And so there needs to be kind of a deeper dive into what is happening in the sport in this relationship with opioids.
Justin Tinsley.
Yeah, I want to take a step back for a second. I think about like soldiers who came back from Vietnam addicted to drugs and how the country responded to that. I think about the crack era and how the country responded to that. And now the current opioid crisis. We've talked about this before, Tony. This country has always struggled with how it talks about and how it acts on addiction. And now this story is on Major League Baseball's front doorstep. It's not just about the fact that Kay may have given Skaggs the dose that killed him. It's about the fact that a team employee is giving players actual drugs. And you mentioned the fact that, they crushed up pills and snorted it off a toilet seat. This is what addiction looks like. And this is what Major League Baseball has to deal with. And with the league that's already locked out, with the league that's already far behind culturally behind baseball and football, a case and a trial of this magnitude is crippling.
Sarah, Spain.
Yeah, I think we dealt with this at least a little bit a couple years ago with the NHL and enforcers' addiction to painkillers, the desire and the need to be available and to be able to be out on the court, the ice, the field. And now we're seeing it make an appearance here in baseball as well, whether it's recreational or whether it's opioids. This is obviously a crisis. And, June brought up Terry Collins. That's another aspect of this for me. Beyond the tragedy that happened to Skaggs, what we're also now dealing with is Matt Harvey having to legally come forward and speak about this, and Terry Collins choosing to speak to the New York Post, choosing to speak to radio stations and air out what appear to me to be personal confessions to their mental skills coach and others within that team that I don't think it's his right to speak about. And that will discourage players from going to seek help about anxiety, about depression, about suicidal ideologies, and potentially about addiction issues. I think there needs to be a better handling of this, both as it's happening and after the fact, with stuff like what Collins is doing.
And Woody Page.
I want to respond to June. You were talking about baseball needs to address this subject. Baseball's too busy trying to cut 188 minor league players from their system, cutting teams that are in the minor leagues, of not trying to get at a table with the Players Association and settle the problem of whether there's going to be a season. Do you really think that the commissioner and the owners are going to say, oh, let's stop everything and concentrate on the opioid problem? That's not going to happen whatsoever. I know in the case specifically of C.J. Cron that he continued to do the opioids and admitted it after he left the Angels and when he was with his next team. I wonder, the Colorado Rockies just signed him to a pretty strong contract, I thought, $9 million. Really, did he stop it then, whether it's going forward? So there should be an investigation, just like there, is supposedly of Bauer and his problems, but yet baseball seems to just want to move everything under the covers and just go on as nothing is happening.
June, I'll allow you back in.
Yeah, Woody, and I think this also speaks to a greater issue of how baseball deals with mental health and the conversations it has around anxiety and depression. Because, I've talked to players who have struggled talking about these issues in the past and have turned to substances to deal with them, whether it's alcohol or other things as well. And so there needs to be a larger conversation, I think, in the sport of baseball and talking about the culture about how players can be open about these and generate trust within the clubhouses and within management in dealing with these issues, because this is a lot of young people who are on high profile platforms playing the sport of baseball, making millions of dollars. There's a lot of pressure on them, and a lot of them don't feel like they have the outlets to talk about these things properly.
Isn't that what you were talking about before, Sarah, with Harvey and what we're hearing, that some of the it was, whether it was confidential or whether it was a trusted information he was giving to a franchise, and they have that information now, and now we're hearing about it in the New York Post or on radio shows.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's the loss of a life here, Sarah, and I think we need to also put that full frame here. Tyler Skaggs lost his life here with his disease, with his addiction. Sarah, last word.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it brings us back to a conversation that we unfortunately have to keep having, which is to say that just being talented and wealthy and famous does not absolve you of the humanity that comes with all of the expectation and the pressure and the criticism and the fans and your mentions and everything else. Like, there are athletes very clearly trying to deal with that in unhealthy ways that need to be addressed.
Justin, what you said rings really true for my ears as well. There is a stigma with drugs in this country.
Yeah.
But there's also a stigma in how we talk about the disease of addiction. And that's in play in this story as well. I believe this is an underreported story. The tragic loss of life was reported of Tyler Skaggs initially. But what we have now here, the U.S. versus K. This is Major League Baseball. As you said, Woody, in the middle of labor unrest and everything that's going on the front page is an enormously important story. We're going to move on now. Celtics 135, Sixers 87 last night. Another huge blowout in the NBA this season. And the win was Boston's ninth straight. They won by 48. A few months ago, I was told on this very show it was time to break up the Celtics. That was after Marcus Smart was talking about how Tatum and Brown don't want to pass the ball. And we're proud of them, but they have to learn. Sarah Spade, how do you evaluate now what Boston is doing?
We talked about this on the show months ago, and this was about effort. We were told repeatedly, this is about effort. And now we have a team that's excelling in one of the biggest effort categories, which is defense, second best defense in the NBA. A couple minor moves at the trade deadline. Their big pieces playing better together. And here we have a team all of a sudden winning 9 straight, winning 3 straight, I think, on the road of 30 points or more. Yeah. It's incredible. I would like to see if this maintains, if they suffer a couple losses in a row. There was some butting of heads and some accusations of ball stopping and et cetera. Does this attitude, this approach to the game, this effort on defense continue even when they're not on a hot streak? That's what I need to see to know that this is for real. But it feels like a lot of what we were hearing from the beginning of the season was fixed just by guys getting their heads right into the game.
Woody Page.
Well, Sarah's right about the defense that they're playing in Boston. They're either first or second in the entire league. But let's talk about the offense a little bit. Over a 12-game stretch, winning 11, they have outscored teams by 21 points, an average of 21 points. That and as Sarah pointed out, they've been averaging 39-point victories in those 3 road games. This is a team that is playing incredibly well on offense also, and it was a shame for them that they lost Smart to an ankle injury last night, because he, as we talked about months ago, we thought he was one of the problems. He's been one of the solutions there. And of course, Tatum and Brown have got together in their summit and kind of settled their problems, and they're throwing the ball to each other on occasions, passing, and I think they're doing it. This is a team that it's a team that actually is just a breath away from being 5th and could actually move into the top 4 and have a home court advantage.
June Lee, what are we seeing from Boston now? How are you evaluating them, and are they now back to being a contender?
I mean, they've made a lot of strides offensively because where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown go, the Celtics are going to go. But the big thing that has changed for them is that since Christmas, they are the #1 defense in the NBA right now. And that is taking a pressure load off of Jaylen Brown and off of Jason Tatum. They're getting contributions from guys like Grant Williams, who's hitting 44% from three in the corner, creating more space for them. He's been a big defensive piece for that entire team. And then the addition of Derek White, who's a solid guy off the bench, is a guy who can distribute the ball. They're starting to buy into Ime Udoka's system, and he's showing why Brad Stevens chose him to be the new head coach and his successor as the leader of the Boston Celtics.
Justin Tinsley.
Yeah, it's just a testament to how long the NBA season actually is. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about break up the Celtics, as you said. Now they're the hottest team in the NBA. The last 3 road games, they've outscored teams by 116 points.
But how real is it? I mean, look at the schedule, I believe. Trademark Woody Page when I say that. This hasn't been the toughest run through team. Well, they beat Philly last night. Philly, that's a tough part of the schedule. But how real is this run?
I mean, look, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. We could say the schedule may have been lax, but look, sometimes teams only need confidence, and this team has a lot of confidence. Tony, they hit 25 threes last night. Philly only hit 23 field goals. Everybody's been talking about this Boston defense. If you play good defense, you give yourself a chance to win, and I think a large credit of that goes to Ime Udoka. He's going to get a lot of Coach of the Year votes if they continue playing like this. And honestly, 9 out of 10 ain't bad. 11 out of 12, 9 straight. Because their big rival out west, they would love to have a winning streak like this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, well, 11 out of 12 is not bad, Justin.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Sarah, you have the last word?
Yeah, I mean, it's just too bad James Harden gets in the building and they immediately get whooped. I mean, it's his first game with the team. He rings the bell, and then he has to watch that happen.
Look at you. You're having too much fun with that. Coming up, we're going to talk Super Bowl. I got to get to your picks from the Super Bowl. Sarah, hold your hands up for a second like you're a doctor and you're reporting for duty. Right over here. Just hold them up. Let me see something. I want to see something. Other way around. Other way around. Oh, I think you know what's happening here. We'll get back to what's going on in Sarah's. I see an X on your head, Sarah, from the Super Bowl party. You're still,
Super Bowl.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Fire cell on the other side.
Use permanent marker for that.
Winter for Major League Baseball. Now the Olympics. What began with the grave dissonance of the IOC granting China the Games amidst globally recognized human rights violations and the genocide and torture of Uyghur population and hostility against Tibet. The competition itself plagued by controversy. Here's not even a complete list. In the ski jump, which pulled competitors out of the competition. The snowboard change up on the board for logos or no logos, which is affecting equipment of people who are competing dangerously after positive drug tests. She's set to skate and is favored for gold 12 hours from now. Sarah, I know you love the Olympic Games. How are these Olympics coming off to you?
I'm finding joy in the stories that I usually do, the Lindsay Jacob Ellis, the Nathan Chen, those stories that are coming to fruition after years of hard work. But I'm having trouble because the cognitive dissonance required to enjoy it, despite all of what you just mentioned about China hosting, can only be possible if we don't also have to suspend disbelief about how the rules are being handled. It has to feel fair. It's happening hours and time zones away. It's happening in sports we aren't super familiar with and with athletes that we're just learning their stories about. If we don't even think they're operating in a clean competition, I think they risk people being invested in it. And that's the entire Olympics, is us becoming invested in people and stories that we're just learning because we know they've spent their lives working toward it. And it's not fair if the rules aren't.
Woody, you've covered over a dozen Olympic Games. Of course, you're not there for these games, but have we lost the essence of the Olympics in these games?
Yeah, I've been watching every night trying to look at it from a different perspective than I did as a journalist. And we're not identifying with the athletes. There have been great stories in the past about athletes from other countries. I'm not feeling that at all, or about those in this country. No identification. I don't think the setting is very nice when you're seeing a nuclear reactor in the background of the ski jump. And I just don't feel the excitement or the interest that I have in previous Olympics that were held, in Norway or in European countries. It just doesn't feel the same.
June Lee.
Well, I think Sarah touched on it, but there's a larger existential crisis that the Olympics are facing, is that the novelty of seeing people from all around the world is kind of gone because of the internet. Like, you see people from other countries all the time just by opening up TikTok or opening up YouTube. And on top of that, the Olympics have had so much kind of control over the video footage where people can't post things on social media, sharing their excitement about the events. The Olympics are operating in this kind of different paradigm in the media landscape, and I think it's failing to generate the type of organic media interest that you want from a sporting event.
That's certainly, it could be part of it, but there's an entirety here. I mean, there have been successful Olympics in previous runs with bad time zone differences for this country, right? These games, Justin, are they different? Is this a disaster? You've got multiple scoring controversies.
Yeah, whenever controversy outweighs your product, it's never a good thing. You just mentioned some of the BAFs. Like, skaters testing positive for steroids. Sha'Carri Richardson's response to that. The women's ski jumpers and their boards. Like, if it wasn't evident before, it's clearly evident now. There's no trust between these athletes and these Olympic committees, whether it's American or international. And honestly, the athletes suffer more from that than the actual governing boards.
Should there be any trust for the Olympic governing committees, though? I mean, I think the track record there would suggest no. Thanks for your thoughts on that. We're going to move on now. Rams Super Bowl parade today. It was very Los Angeles. You may have heard that they were going to change the Hollywood sign to try to make it say Rams House. Did anybody see this? What do you see there? Did they stick the landing? I don't know if they got Rams House in there. While LA flaunted it, Cincinnati began to nurse it a little bit more. News from Cincy today that it was a sprained MCL for Joe Burrow on the tackle that he played through the last couple of possessions. He's now, of course, going to rest and heal. Woody, our yearly parade question. Who's more likely to get back to the Super Bowl? Those Rams or those Bengals?
Usually the losers of the Super Bowl sort of drift back. I'm going to go with the Bengals, however. I think Joe Burrow's got an incredible future. Obviously, anybody that watched him, that's still a younger team that's now experienced it. The Rams are going to lose a lot of free agents. They put this team together for a one-year run.
Sarah Spain?
I am tempted to say the Bengals because of the magic, but I think some of that magic doesn't maybe come back, and they still have to address that offensive line. Joe Burrow's been sacked 19 times just in this playoff run. They got to figure that out, or he's going to get hurt again like we just saw. So I got to go Rams. More good players there.
Justin Tinsley.
Surprise, surprise, I'm going with the Bengals, and here's why. They have draft picks and they have money. They have the fourth largest cap spread in the league, $48 million. Every single penny of that needs to go to the offensive line.
And June Lee.
I'm also going to go with the Bengals because I think their problems are really easily identifiable, that offensive line. You just put all of your draft capital, you put all of your financial free agent capital into that. And then you have Joe Burrow, who I think is one of the generation's best quarterbacks, and that's something that you can't find
One of the generation's best, but the other generation's best also live in his conference, right? He's got to go through Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson every year, and who knows, who's going to bubble up after that. That's a tough.
Where am I?
Oh, Woody, I'm so happy you asked. Only one panelist on the show accurately predicted the Rams to win the Super Bowl. Woody Page gets the bonus. Going the wrong way, Sarah Spain, Justin Tinsley, and Mr. June Lee. But enough for June Lee to advance with Woody Page. Sarah, one last time. You went to Super Bowl parties. You're still wearing the marking on the hand. There it is.
Listen, it's a badge of honor that apparently never comes off.
I had to bet one panelist would still be wearing the magic marker on the head. It would be Spain. Page, Lee, showdown. Next.